and welcome to the first episode of the Buffoons Sportscast. I'm your host, Phil Melangi. To my left, I got Alex Campbell. In front of me, I got Troy Alexander and Jay Kaufman. Gentlemen, congratulations. We're finally here doing our first episode. How does it feel?
It feels really good. I'm excited to delve right in.
Nice. So we actually have a couple interesting topics that we definitely want to bring to you guys as our first episode rolls along. But before we get started, why don't we tell the listeners why we're doing this? What's the meaning behind us creating the Buffoons Sportscast, and what we're trying to accomplish by starting our own podcast?
We're excited to be doing this podcast because, we're four friends that all love sports, and we talk about sports all the time, and, it's just something that we love, and, with technology and the internet and all this available nowadays, we want to be able to just share our thoughts with everybody that, maybe you don't always hear on the radio or on television that are, mainstream, the hope is that, people will enjoy what we're saying or want to join in the discussion, and, our hope is to be able to get this big, but, we're just sharing our love for sports with everybody and just discussing it. This is something we do on a regular basis anyway, so.
Because I don't know about you guys, but it's like I'll often be at work or even like a restaurant or just any kind of type of public setting, and I will be walking, and I will just hear groups of people just talking about sports.
Yeah.
And it's like that right there just kind of proves that like there's so many groups out there that talk sports, and that they're just friends that just talk about the same things that you talk about your friends with. So I feel like if you can broadcast this, of course other people are going to have their opinions. So we want to hear from everybody. We want to.
And there's a lot of the opinions on TV and on the radio that are pretty much the same. And so a lot of people, and a lot of times they don't get into as much depth or into as much detail. And not everybody cares for that same level of detail. Not everybody cares for the analytics or the statistics and kind of dorks out like we do on some of this stuff, but there are a lot of people out there that do, and so we want to be able to share that with everybody.
First one, I think, is probably my favorite topic, and I know it's one of Troy's favorite topics, is NBA free agency. So, Troy, I'm going to get started with you. There are some big moves during this free agency. Which one do you think made the most impact on a particular team?
Ooh.
There's a lot of them, though, obviously,
yeah.
Like Anthony Davis going to Lakers, Kevin Durant signing with Brooklyn, with the other acquisitions. But what team do you think really won free agency?
So I think that, and it's no disrespect to the East, but I almost feel like we should just be talking about the West, because in the East, I literally feel like there's one team that could maybe pose a threat to any West team, and that's the 76ers. Like, as far as Boston, I feel like they got worse. I feel Philadelphia's defense got even better, but their offense got worse. If I had to pick, I would say Philadelphia is the best team in the East. But for me, actually the most interesting part was the Battle of LA, Clippers versus Lakers, and then Russell Westbrook's fit in Houston, and then Golden State's fit with Durant leaving, going to the East. Now, obviously, back to the East. I'm sorry, I don't mean to backtrack, but if Durant was healthy, I would feel like the Nets would be the best team in the East.
Would you say that the Nets will be a contender next year with Durant back?
Absolutely.
As long as he doesn't get set back by his injury?
Absolutely. I honestly feel like if there's no setback, the Nets will be in the finals. I mean, that's a stretch, because that's 2 years away. But just kind of knowing who Durant is, I personally feel like Brooklyn would be in the finals. But the West is so crazy. Like, I look at it, and the Rockets, the Clippers, the Lakers, and the Warriors, for me, are the best four teams. And then you still have three really good teams: Nuggets, Trailblazers, and the Jazz. Like, I really feel like one of those teams outside of the top four that I listed could, like, bearing some type of luck, could get to the finals. To be honest, I really feel like Utah, especially. I feel like Utah got so good with Mike Conley, Bogdanovich, nice pieces. Like, they needed some shooting. They got Bogdanovich. They got a veteran point guard to lead the way now in Conley. I feel like Utah's really good. But
I completely agree. And I know you guys don't know us yet, but if you're going to listen to anyone with their basketball information, it's this guy right here.
By this guy, I
Troy.
believe he means Troy, not himself.
Yes. Thanks for actually saying my name.
Yeah.
Oh, no problem.
Thanks, dude.
So with that in mind, Alex is actually a huge Lakers fan. He's been a Lakers fan since probably the day you were born. You grew up in Long Beach, California. And what's your opinion on the acquisition from the Lakers? I mean, they got some pretty decent pieces. Obviously, the biggest one being Anthony Davis. They did trade a lot, of young talent plus some future picks. But what's your opinion on the Lakers' acquisition during this offseason? Do you see them as a favorite going to the NBA Finals?
Well, let's go back first. I'm a huge Lakers fan. I've been a Lakers fan since, birth. My dad's been a Lakers fan since he was a child. My grandfather was a Clippers fan and had season tickets to see the Clippers.
Oh, God, I'm sorry.
Yeah, it was
That's
rough.
actually,
It
I
was
didn't even
rough.
know that.
Yeah, he would take us to the Clippers games, and I couldn't stand it. But if we back it up a little bit, I wasn't too happy when they got LeBron. I mean, obviously, that's probably being pretty selfish, as he's probably the greatest player.
But why, though?
Because I'm a Kobe fan, and I've been hating LeBron for...
And I can attest to this because I don't know how many times him and I have gotten into LeBron versus Kobe, but that's a whole other thing.
Yeah, so, I mean, I wasn't too happy then. And then when they traded all their young talent away, it was obviously kind of sad because as Laker fans, we'd kind of been hoping that we'd get a good young core and try to make a run that way. But it seems like that ended pretty quick. So I do love the acquisitions we've gotten this offseason. Anthony Davis is probably the best power forward in the league.
Yeah, so you were stoked when
No,
they
I was
traded him. Do you think they got rid of too much for him? Or do you think
Hell no.
Or do you think it was it was worth it? Like it's worth the risk to get Anthony Davis, getting rid of 3 young talent plus future picks. Do you think it was worth it for the Lakers to do that?
I wish they could have found a way to keep Kuzma and Ingram, but the other ones I really could care less about. At the end of the day, I mean, Lonzo Ball is a great player. I mean, a lot of Laker fans don't give him enough credit as what he's done. He's actually taken himself out of the situation with his dad, and he's trying to actually play without being the big baller brand. And he actually is a really good point guard. He just can't shoot. In my opinion, I think he needs to completely change his shot. But other than that, I'm ecstatic with the trade. Bringing in Dudley, Danny Green, they re-sign Rondo. I think they've got a good chance of going. I think they're so big in size with Cousins too that the other teams are really going to struggle, especially the Clippers. And me and Troy have gone 45-hour, 2-hour conversations about that in depth. We just don't think they have the size to really compete with the Lakers.
And something else I wanted to point on, it's like every LeBron team, though, it's like you're trading your future for your now, because every time LeBron's been on a team, it's win now mode. It's not, hey, LeBron is 28, 29, 30. It's like we're not going to wait 3 years for this young guy to develop, because at that point LeBron's going to be aged. So it's always going to be trade your young assets now to get a star so you can win now. It's never going to be, hey, let's have Lonzo Ball or Ingram or Josh Hart get really good in 5 years, because at that point LeBron's going to be 38, 39, 40 years old. You're not going to wait. That's just how LeBron teams are. You trade your now you trade your future for your now.
Well, and I think that the NBA is different too than any other sport. I think that it's better to trade now for players as opposed like in the NBA compared to Major League Baseball or the NFL, just because you see like every single year, like in the first round, how many players actually hit and become great players. I mean, a lot of them just end up being players that come in off your bench or role players or don't even end up making it at all in the NBA, So, I'm not always too upset about trading future picks, because unless you're getting usually one of the top 3 picks or top 5 picks that year in the draft, I mean, the chances of your player actually panning out and being a great player are pretty low. I mean, it happens, of course, but
it's also a gigantic gamble, right? Because it's like...
And one player can impact the game more in basketball as opposed to baseball or the NFL. So I think you're getting more in return.
I like what you said too. Is just about if you can make a trade that is really going to impact you for let's say you give away 2 first-round picks. if you know, like a player like Anthony Davis, you know with LeBron and Anthony Davis in there, you have a chance to win. You just do. If you put a decent cast around them, they can win.
Which they have.
And like Jake said, they're not going to have the top 4 picks in the draft anyways. So I feel like it's okay to give away your next 2 first-round picks if you're going to be a top 4 team in the league, because it doesn't affect you that bad.
And sorry, go ahead, Phil.
So let me just quickly segue to this question. I know we briefly talked about it actually before we went on air. But which team do you think took the biggest risk this offseason? Do you think Los Angeles gave up too much for Anthony Davis, or do you think Brooklyn, signing Durant, signing Kyrie, took a risk during the offseason with those signings? Because obviously we know
What about
Kyrie.
the Clippers?
I think the Clippers, got.
I think we can all agree that the Clippers didn't take on the biggest risk.
They gave away 6. Didn't they give away 6 draft picks? Troy, how many was
yeah,
it?
but again, like we were just talking about, to land Kawhi Leonard
For
and
the Clippers,
Paul George.
the Clippers trading for Paul
two-way
George.
players.
But they traded for picks in 2021, 2022, 2023, so on and so forth.
Two-way players that can shoot.
Yes, true, but the biggest thing about it is Kawhi only signed essentially a 2-year deal. It's not like he signed a 5-year deal where it's like, okay, we're trading all
5-year deals in the NBA don't mean anything, as we all seen.
And I'm sorry, I shouldn't even said 5 years, because a free agent can't even sign a 5-year deal with another team if it's not his first team. But what I mean is, max he could have signed is 4, but he only signed a 3-year deal with a player option for the 3rd year. So it's like along with Paul George, he lined his contract up with Paul George's so they could both be free agents in 2021.
And they gave up picks up to 2024, didn't they?
No, it's up to 2026 if I recall.
2026.
Not just first round picks, but pick slots.
See, I don't think that's worth it personally.
I do, for a team that's never won a championship, and you can get 2 All-Pros.
Yeah, but what else do you
I agree
have?
with Jake to the extent that Clippers have never won anything, right? It's always been the Lakers' town. It's always been.
It still is.
It
You're
is.
talking
It's probably
about
always
drafting
will be no matter
players
what.
that are. You're talking about drafting players that are going to be 20 or 21 that aren't going to truly develop into great players until they're 25, 26. And so you're talking about 10 years from now. You know what I mean? You got to play for now.
It's like what Pat Riley says. If there's a star available, you trade for him. You play all your cards, you put them all on the table, and you say, if there's a star available, we're going to Shaq.
Yeah, but you have to have enough to surround those players with something.
And I don't think this is the right mindset for baseball or for football. But I think
Probably
for the
not.
But I think for basketball in the NBA, I think because you have one player on a team of 5 compared to a team of 11 starters on offense or defense in the NFL, or 9 in baseball, you have 5, and then you're talking about a player that plays both offense and defense and just impacts the game at a much higher level. So, and because the Clippers are pretty deep and did really well last year without superstars, to be honest, they had some great players and some all-stars, but they didn't have superstars.
I mean, to answer Phil's question, who took the bigger risk between the Nets and the Lakers, I don't think the Lakers did. Now, if we're including the Clippers in that conversation, that I would say the Clippers, but between those two, I would say the Lakers, because AD is going to be a free agent next year. LeBron's time is kind of running out. I mean, he's going to be 35 this year.
So if you took Anthony Davis and you took LeBron out of the Lakers roster, I mean, what would you give the team? How do you think the team would finish without those two?
Exactly. No, they wouldn't be. They would arguably be finishing last in the West with that roster, because I think of every team in the West, there's at least a superstar on almost every team. But I mean, of course, you take away superstars.
You don't think DeMarcus Cousins is a superstar?
I don't know how he's recovering from that Achilles, man.
That's true.
I really don't know how because he was an MVP candidate in Sacramento. He's a beast. But I just mean I personally, I think the Lakers took a bigger risk just because Anthony Davis is impending free agency. There's no guarantee he's going to resign. He says he wants to resign, but a year can change a lot of things.
It can, but I think they do well enough this year to keep him there. I don't see where else. He's a smart person. He let's be honest, he branded his unibrow. He's going to want to brand that unibrow in LA.
I mean, him and LeBron share the same agent. I mean, of course,
Space
that
Jam
plays
2.
into it. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I just think the Nets are fine with waiting a year and being like, hey, we've got the second best player in the game coming back in a year. and it's the East. Let's be honest. Like, the West is way more competitive. When Durant gets back, I honestly feel like the Nets will be the best team in the East. So, but in my opinion, I say the Lakers took the biggest risk.
Okay.
Huh. See, I think the Nets took the biggest risk.
Are you concerned with his Achilles injury? Do you think it's more on Kyrie?
I think both.
Because I've
But
looked
did they
into
trade
this
for either of them?
because I've looked into this topic
Yeah.
pretty much between.
They traded. I'm sorry, Phil. I want to answer Alex's question. They traded for the sign and trade for D'Angelo Russell that brought Durant. It was
Okay.
actually a first round pick and Durant to the Nets for D'Angelo Russell, unless it was the other way around. I know one of the teams got a first round pick. It's not sure.
Okay, cool. Well, the only reason I brought it up is because it's just been a main topic that I've been reading online is who took the bigger risk between those two teams.
Yeah.
See, I do feel like it was the Nets, to be honest, though. I really do.
But
because
a thing that
you're-
people
you're-
keep bringing up though is is Kyrie like a team killer in a sense because look how he was with Boston. I mean,
Exactly.
he couldn't gel with the young
That's-
talent there.
That's my argument,
Yeah.
and the fact that you're playing 2 years from now. So first off, like you're talking, okay, next year you're not gonna win. It's gonna be the Bucks or the 76ers, in my opinion. You know, it's gonna be. I think they go to your Eastern Conference championship, and so you're talking 2 years from now. But now you're talking about two teams that are going to improve next year, while it's going to be Kyrie playing again with his team. And then 2 years from now, Durant's going to come back, and again, it's going to be Kyrie trying to just. All of a sudden, it's going to be him surrendering the team. I don't know how that's going to work, and it's going to take a little bit of time for them to get to play well together. So you could be talking, honestly, the first year, they might even go to the finals, but I don't know if they'll win. So you could be talking about 3 seasons from now is what you spent all that on. And to be honest, you've only got them guaranteed then for
Well,
2 seasons after.
I really had to think about that because like Kyrie has proved that let's be honest, like he hasn't led a team by himself. Like I always felt like Kyrie's obviously a great player, but I always felt like you can't win a championship with him being your best player. So is he able to lead that Brooklyn team? I don't know. He's not going to have to once Durant gets back. Who cares about this upcoming season for the East? Nets aren't going to win anyway. Let's just talk about the next 2.
Did they make the playoffs?
They make the playoffs, yes. It's the East.
What seed?
I'd say like 5-6 seed.
Okay.
5-6 seed.
All right, so let's move on to the next topic. So since we'll keep on the same topic with the NBA, a discussion that we've all had as the Buffoon Sportscast is
It's like that everyone's had.
I think everyone has this
Yeah.
topic, but I know we've been so passionate about this particular topic is top 5 greatest players of all time. I'll start with you,
Ooh,
Jake,
baby.
and I think you can identify also like there's a difference between greatest and best.
Top 5 NBA players of all time. Number 1 for me is Michael Jordan. To me, if he didn't, quit and play baseball for 2 years, he would have had 2 more championships. So to me, he would have had 8, and he was just so dominant, averaged 30 points a game, just complete beast. Number 2 is Kareem. He dominated basketball from high school through college through the NBA. He won championships on 2 different teams with the Bucks and the Lakers. So he was truly just a dominant force in basketball, and currently has the most points of all time. I just don't know how you could not put him in your top 2 or 3 all time. Number 3 is Magic. Magic Johnson, obviously, and the reason for that is just he was one of the best all-around basketball players we've ever seen, playing the point guard at his height, his ball handling skills, and the fact that his career was shortened, but he won 5 championships. He probably would have had more if he didn't have to quit so early. Number 4,
And he beat AIDS.
yeah, and he beat AIDS. That's a
Damn, how often does that happen?
Or HIV.
yeah.
Money.
Number 4 is Kobe Bryant. And, to me, he's just got the ability. He's the closest thing
many
we've...
Lakers right now.
Hey, to be honest, I'm not necessarily a fan of my favorite
He's not
players
a
of all
Lakers
time.
fan.
I'm not, my favorite players of all
can't-
time
yeah.
are Dirk Nowitzki, Steve Nash, and Reggie Miller. So, I mean...
Yeah, I know. I'm
I'd
just
love
saying.
I'd love to say it's one of them, but
Yeah.
it's not. But to me, Kobe Bryant's the closest thing we've ever seen to Michael Jordan. He's got the ability to just take over a game and no matter what you do, you can double team him, and there are just some games where like the ball's going in. It doesn't matter what you do, and he's just so clutch. And then number 5 to me, this is really tough. It's between LeBron James and Tim Duncan. I do believe that LeBron James could end up being number even 2 all time, but to me right now, it's Tim Duncan at number 5. 5 championships, Mr. Fundamental. I do think LeBron ends up passing him and even potentially Kobe Bryant, depending on how the end of his career turns out with the Lakers. But to me, Tim Duncan right now has the more established career. And to me, this is your question was the greatest, not the best. And to me, when you're talking greatest, you have to take into consideration accomplishments and accolades and things like that, and not just what you're seeing on the field. Because I think that, to me, if we're using the similar analogy, Peyton Manning is a better quarterback than Tom Brady to me, but Tom Brady is the greater quarterback, and vice versa. I think Dan Marino is a better quarterback than Joe Montana, but Joe Montana is a greater quarterback.
So you're looking at the accomplishments, what they've accomplished.
I think you take it all into consideration, the accomplishments, how skilled they are, because I think that, Troy Aikman and Terry Bradshaw won 3 and 4 rings apiece too, but, you don't necessarily put them in the top 5 greatest because of, their skill set. Of course, Joe Montana and Tom Brady, of course, have the high level of skill to go along with this as well. So they're definitely in the list of the best as well. Just like, any of these NBA players would also be on the list of best too. But to me, if we're talking greatest, it's Tim Duncan at 5. So that's
all right, cool. Then we'll move to you, Troy, because I know your list is going to differ from majority of us. So go ahead and start with your number 1, which I think we all will agree.
Yeah. So I want to really magnify the point where this, for me, is greatest of all time, not best of all time. Best of all time for me, is between LeBron James and Michael Jordan. That's best, overall skilled. But this is the greatest. So greatest for me, I always feel is going to be Michael Jordan. Jake pretty much hit on it. I don't even think I need to. He'd change basketball.
Yeah, really. I think if LeBron was 9-0 in the finals, that'd be a different story right now.
I don't even know if that would have made a difference, to be honest. I just feel like what Michael Jordan did for the game, he brought that competitiveness back into the game, which was lacking at the time. I don't know. All the shoes, just what Michael Jordan did for the game is just going to be so hard to top. But I don't know. And then I've got number 2, I've got Kareem. The ultimate winner all the way from high school to the NBA, got traded and still won championship with Magic. Hook shot, unstoppable. He's my number 2. Number 3, I've got Bill Russell. Like I said, if this is going greatest all time, you could arguably put Bill Russell number 1. He's got 11 championships, if that's what we're basing this list off of, but we're not. So, of course, different era, 1950s. Still, 11 championships is very impressive. Number 4, I've got... This was hard. My 4 and 5s were very difficult. Number 4, I've got Kobe Bryant. Kind of the guy you want. And I see my guy over here arguing.
Stoked for this.
Yeah, he is. Like I said, greatest of all time. This is the 3rd time I've mentioned it. It's overall skilled. LeBron's going to be my number 2. But we're not talking about skilled. We're talking about greatest accomplishments of all time. I've got Kobe number 4. Number 5, I've got Tim Duncan. Best power forward of all time. And then what's a what?
Solid lineup.
I thought you said soft. I was like, dude, I put Kobe before LeBron. You're still calm down. Okay. But yeah, no, I've got
soft, but I mean,
I've got Duncan number 5, best power forward of all time.
Didn't phase him. Kobe mentality. Alex, what's your top 5 list?
Before I'm going to cut you off right now. Killer mentalities are stupid, but go on.
Well, thanks for interrupting me for a stupid opinion like that.
I can go into detail why it's stupid, but I won't. But go ahead.
Well, I've got Robert Horry number 1.
Yes.
7 rings more than Jordan. What's good? No, I've got Michael Jordan number 1. I don't think it even needs an explanation. To be honest with you, I don't think anyone will ever be better than Jordan because of just what he did for basketball at the same time, and just knowing that he went to baseball. It's going to take a lot. It's really going to take a lot. Someone's going to have to go and basically be undefeated because he is undefeated.
They would need to go win 9 championships, in my opinion.
No, even 7. Even if you won 6. Even if you went to 6 and won 6.
God.
Okay, that's besides the point. Then I've got Kareem. I think we all agreed on that already. It's just
So our ones
and twos are basically the same. 3 I have
You don't
Kobe.
know what my list is yet.
Yeah.
3 I have Kobe.
Wow, really?
Yes.
Wow, I'm surprised he's number 3.
I know. I thought he was going to be number 2.
God.
I was thinking about it. It's tough between him and Kareem, but I just think with that sky hook and just Kareem is just such a stud. But yeah, 3 I have Kobe. 5 championships. Stayed with the same team the whole entire time. Other than having one other superstar in his team, he never really had.
Yeah, he won
A
2
ton of-
championships without another superstar, to be honest.
Well, no, Pau Gasol was a superstar.
I think
I'm not
he's an
saying he's
all-star.
not.
I don't know if he's
No. At that time, Pau Gasol was a superstar, and I think Troy will agree with
And
me.
I
with that.
think we can
He
actually.
would have been a superstar on his own team.
I think we can actually sit there
He was
and actually
dominating.
debate.
Let's remember this one.
What's-
Let's hip pocket this and come back.
All right, but maybe that's something that we can bring up in the future where we can identify what's considered an all-star and what's considered a superstar, and then what's the difference between them. But anyways,
Yeah.
keep going with your top 5 list.
4, I've got LeBron.
Oh my God, I almost had a heart attack right now.
And
And
anyone
then-
who's listening to this episode of the Buffoon Sportscast,
Well, it's
Alex
tough for
is
me.
a LeBron
Wow.
hater. He was not stoked.
No, I'm
when
not a
the
hater
Lakers-
anymore, to be honest with you.
But when you
I'm
heard
really
the
not.
news that the Lakers signed LeBron, I know you weren't
Oh, I was
ecstatic
pissed.
like
No, I was
the fan,
pissed.
like the usual fan.
Oh no! When they traded for LeBron, I was pissed. But it's been a year, and we've got AD, we've got Cousins, got Danny Green, we got a lot of good players. So I'm happy with what's happened. It was tough for me to put him above Magic, but obviously Magic would be my 5th. And if I could have a 6th, it would be a shout out to Big Tim D. So
And I think, can we all agree that number 7 would be Shaquille
Jack.
O'Neal?
yes,
Oh,
and
the most-
it's tough to
he's
not
the most
put him-
dominant
I'm so
player in NBA
passionate
history.
about
Yeah.
Shaq. So
Yeah.
Most dominant player in all
So,
of
sorry,
NBA
let's,
history.
let's let Phil get to his list.
Yes.
'Cause
Yeah.
Shaq could be on Phil's top
Big
5.
Phil,
yeah, this
Because Phil does love Big Shaq.
he does love
Probably
the
a
Diesel.
little bit. It's
Big
a little,
Diesel.
little weird.
Yeah, but he's into wrestling.
I would give a shout out to Shaq too because he has his own podcast. So if you're listening to this, definitely check his out as well.
Follow us, Shaq.
Yeah, Shaq, follow us too. I'm giving you a shout out, big guy.
Follow for follow.
Hashtag follow for follow. So my top 5 list, obviously, I think our top 2 is going to be exactly the same. I'll do Michael number 1 and Kareem number 2. But I'm actually going to mirror what Alex just said. And number 3, I'm going to put Kobe there as well.
What's up, Troy?
And if you were here right now, you would see the disgust look on Troy's face. It's hilarious.
It's not
It's
just look of
beautiful.
disgust, it's just
It's
like
beautiful.
there's so much like.
And I've already said this.
Yeah.
Magic Johnson has come out and said Kobe Bryant's the best Laker of all time.
So is Shaq.
So I'm going to go with that. Number 4, I'll go Magic. And then number 5, I'd go Tim Duncan. So that would be my...
You know what's? I'm sorry, Phil. What's hilarious about this whole thing is out of all of us, Alex is by far the biggest LeBron hater, but he's the only one out of us 3 that's listed him in his top
Well,
5.
I have to put Tim Duncan number 5 because like we mentioned before, Mr. Fundamentals.
Oh, no, I agree with you.
You guys
I
are
agree.
just-
Spurs
I don't know how
are a
LeBron's
dynasty.
not in your guys's.
I'm just thinking if
And
we're
I
going
agree,
off
with
sheer
I agree with what
accomplishments.
you're saying because going to 9 finals
Are you
isn't...
kidding me? You went to just Phil just at 9 straight.
8.
Okay, 8.
But 9 total.
Not okay.
And that's an
Yeah.
accomplishment in itself if you
It
would all
is.
agree.
It
How many years has he not been an All-Star?
I think
Only
LeBron. I think if we're having this
one.
conversation again in 5 years, LeBron is probably
LeBron
in the
would be in
top.
everyone's top
I
5.
think he's probably going to be top 2 in most.
If
in
he
greatest
wins
in skill
another
of all
ring-
time. To be honest,
He does need to win another one to really to even get him to be considered better than Jordan. He has to win 4, in my opinion.
Well, I think especially so because if you're just thinking about all the players that we just named on all of our lists, every single one of them has more rings than LeBron. Shaq has 4, Duncan has 5, Kobe has 5, Jordan has 6, Kareem has 6, Magic has 5, Larry Bird has 3. He's tied with LeBron. You've got
we can go into this for so long because like how many of these guys actually went up against dynasties in the finals. Like LeBron has gone up against 2 dynasties in the finals, and I top of my head, I can't recall most of these guys going up against dynasties.
Right, because they were the dynasties.
But
Lakers
I'm saying
did.
if there's,
Why isn't LeBron a dynasty?
I don't know, like
Don't tell me the Lakers didn't. They had to fight through dynasties just in the West just to get to the NBA championship.
who was their dynasty
And then
that
to
they
play.
fought against them?
Dude,
The
they had to play
Mavericks,
the
the Suns, and the Spurs.
You would actually consider them dynasty?
would-
Maybe
yeah,
I'd say the
Spurs, for
Spurs.
sure.
the
but
Spurs
not,
for sure. And I would honestly even say the Suns. They might not have ever gotten it done,
The
but that
Mav-
team with Steve Nash, Amari Stoudemire.
I'm talking
The
like
Mavericks,
historically
Mavericks-
great.
Yeah.
the Mavericks went to 2 championships.
I'm talking
Still.
historically great teams. Like
Still
if you
found
look
ways
at
to
Golden
lose that.
State,
Well, what do you identify as a dynasty? Like, what criteria do they need to become a dynasty?
I think you have to go to the finals multiple times and at least win 2 to 3. I mean, that's a dynasty.
Are you saying like consecutive or like just in a time frame?
I'd say in like 5 years, if you've gone to the finals 3 times, maybe 1.
so.
even
You would.
2
So
would
you
be
wouldn't
a
put the
dynasty.
Suns obviously in
No,
that
I'm not
because they
putting
never
them.
won.
They never went to the finals.
But during
that's
that,
almost. That's like really hard to do to play a dynasty.
But that's exactly why they
Like-
call them dynasties, because they don't happen very often.
Yeah, I see what you're saying, but I mean,
the only
you don't think the
dynasty right
Celtics-
now in the NBA would be Golden State.
And then before them, I mean, would you consider Miami the dynasty for that 4-year run?
Yeah.
Okay,
I
what
would.
about
What about the
Spurs?
Celtics?
Celtics now?
Really, with the big three?
I don't consider them a
would.
dynasty.
They really.
I
would.
don't.
They
Those
did,
the
they did
first
go to
big
2
three.
NBA finals and did win 1. So
And they were consistently.
And they beat
how
a
many
really
times?
good,
Didn't they go to the Eastern
uh,
Conference Finals and lose like another 2 or 3 times?
They went to the conference finals altogether 4 times and won the conference finals twice, but won a championship once. They lost to the Heat and they lost to the
Still,
Magic. In the conference
That's to me.
I think
That's
that's
still
a
a
dynasty.
dynasty.
I
I don't
think
know
it
that
is.
it's one of the top like.
top dynasties
Yeah,
of all
well,
time. But yeah,
I would-
I agree with you. That could be considered a
We
dynasty.
should talk about.
I
that
also
some
think they
time.
changed basketball. I mean, not completely, but like with the big three.
I mean, well, yeah, and I mean, you're right. I mean, that's kind of when the big three started to
In my era,
form.
I feel like I've seen 3 dynasties in the NBA, and that would be the Spurs of the 2000s, and you could argue they were a dynasty up till they won the last time, which is 2014. Mid 2000 Spurs, and then the Miami Heat from 2010 to 2014, and then the Warriors from 2000.
What about
So
the
you
Lakers?
wouldn't consider the
The Lakers?
Lakers
They went
from
to
the
7
early 2000s?
They went to 7 championships and won 5.
Okay, that's true. I honestly just forgot about the Lakers. In all honesty.
You blocked them out of your head because
I
you're not a Lakers fan.
Yeah, okay. Yes, and that Lakers dynasty, yeah. So I've seen 4 dynasties, and I don't think the Celtics were a dynasty. I really don't.
Okay, but I would say
That's-
they're the 5th best team we've seen since, I would say that's the 3rd. Would you agree that's the 5th best team we've seen though since probably the end of the Bulls run in the 90s when that Lakers team started to take over?
I don't know. That Detroit team was pretty damn good.
Yeah,
The
but
team
I'm-
was ridiculous.
Keep
that
in
year.
mind,
but-
the Lakers lost to that team.
But
Yeah.
Rondo, but I would.
But that's also
And
the
the Lakers
same.
beat that team.
Yeah,
but
but
the
that,
Lakers also lost to that Celtics team.
hold on.
That's true, but they
hold
didn't
on.
have Andrew Bynum.
Hold on. How many championships did the Lakers go to before they played the Detroit Pistons?
3.
They won 3 straight.
No.
Yes, they did. That was their 4th. They were going. Or wait, no. I think there was a year in between.
I think
There was a year in between.
The Spurs beat them the year after. Didn't
You're right.
they?
That's still a lot of basketball. The Lakers still went to the
Can't believe that was
playoffs
already
again.
15 years ago. That's why I just can't remember.
But can we all agree that
Maybe,
when
I
you
don't
go
know if it
to
was the Spurs that beat them, but someone beat them.
Who?
And the
The-
Spurs went
the-
to the finals.
Well, let's
Well,
finish
can
the
we
Alex's
just
point.
can we just agree that when you go to even 3 straight finals in a row, that the 4th year and on just becomes harder and harder and harder
course.
because you're so tired because you've played 20 plus games more than everyone else every year.
So you're
almost.
saying
Of course.
going to consecutive finals can identify you as a dynasty?
I think going
Even
back
if-
to
even if
back
you
it
don't
kind
win.
of does personally.
So would you
Not
consider?
doesn't mean you're a better dynasty than someone that's gone 5 times straight.
Okay, so would you consider? I know we're switching sports on what I'm about to bring up, but would you consider the Bills a dynasty, even though they went to how many Super Bowls in that time frame but didn't win one? Would you consider them a dynasty?
I
then?
think that's absolutely a dynasty.
I think that's such a hard one because they never won.
They still win. They still beat every other. They were still the second best team every single year for 4 straight years. I think that's still a dynasty.
That's so tough.
I don't know. Since we're talking about dynasties, and I figured we'd reach to NFL because that's actually going to be our next topic.
That's a really tough question.
See, that's why I haven't even answered it. It is a tough
And maybe
question.
this is something we can actually, look into
still
and then bring it
say-
up to the next podcast.
I would say yes, and especially because
It's so tough because they just never won. Making 4
Okay,
is so.
So would
Okay,
you
what's-
change the criteria of dynasty?
You're probably
to
right.
have to win some sort of title. during that
You're
time
probably
frame.
right, and you're probably right about the Celtics too. They're probably one tier right below dynasty.
Okay,
Whatever that is.
That makes sense because that's like a UFC fighter that wins the interim belt and never wins the actual belt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're a champion. You're the interim champion, but you're not the champion.
And it's like to be AFC champions for 4 years in a row, but never being a Super Bowl champion. Like, yes, you are the champions at the top of your
You're the AFC
top
champion.
of
or
the
the,
mountain in your conference. But
Yep.
it's like you could never beat that NFC
Exactly.
championship team. It's like I want to say yes, that is a dynasty, but it's hard for them because they never won.
Well,
I
and
can
it's-
agree with you. Actually, I might change my stance on that.
So
I think.
here's the problem though. They lost to.
What are you doing, dude?
I'm looking for my phone to try to figure out who they lost to.
Oh, well, all we saw was you crawling on the floor.
I think it fell under the couch here.
I thought you were
Do
becoming
you
one
want
of
to
the dogs.
explain about this couch?
Well, it's a black hole. It swallows phones, and then you've got to just dig your hand down inside the couch to try to find your phone, and it hurts to find it. And anyways,
We got some
so
gentlemen over here.
That's what happened to my phone.
Yeah.
But
Troy's pouring another shot for us
Ooh,
of
nice.
Jack
little
Daniels.
little gentleman Jack over here.
And what were we just talking about? Oh, we were talking about the dynasty thing. So my problem with the Bills, and I was
I'm
trying.
going
That's
to
why I was
give
looking-
you 1 minute to discuss this, and then we're
I
moving
won't
on to
even
the
need a
next
minute.
topic.
So
Good call.
my problem with the Bills is they didn't win a championship, and I need to look it up, but I'm pretty sure they lost to 3 or 4 different teams. I believe they lost to a Redskins team. I believe
And the Redskins were a dynasty in the early 90s.
they were.
Yeah, they were a
you know,
dynasty.
Yeah, Joe Theismann.
Yes.
You know, they were great, but
The Hogs on the O-line there,
Yep.
they were a by far.
if Joe Theismann didn't have that nasty career,
They probably could have won a few more.
yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah.
But anyways, because they lost to a few different teams in the NFC, because I believe they lost to the 49ers, I think they lost to the I forget what all teams they lost to, but because it was 3 or 4 different teams that beat them in Super Bowls, that's why I don't know that I would consider them a dynasty, but I think it's one tier below dynasty. So
Okay.
Perfect. Well, again, we appreciate you guys joining the Buffoon Sportscast, and now we're moving on to our next topic, which is NFL predictions. This
Hold
one,
on, I think that
Spice.
before this round starts, I think the shots need to be taken from these two gentlemen over here.
Okay.
All right.
And as we want to apologize if the sound's not amazing, it is our first one, and we're going to be investing more in equipment and things like that, in the future. And I've got my American Bully dog here that's licking his bone to death with peanut butter in it. So if you can hear that, we apologize.
But we appreciate you joining us. And like Jake said, we're just a bunch of friends that decided, we love talking about sports. Why not just put it in a podcast and release it and see what happens with it? So again, thank you for joining us. But to this, Troy, cheers.
Cheers, my friend.
and so I'd like to say I think we'll be making a Twitter page or something like that here soon, so that everybody's able to kind of join in on the discussion and share their opinions and thoughts.
Yeah.
Agree. We like interaction with what we're talking about.
Absolutely.
Do you agree? Do you disagree? Who do you agree with? Who do you not agree with? Someone being biased, that's totally fine. We're all very honest with each other. So please join us in the discussion with the Buffoon Sportscast. Alex will be getting on that social media.
Yeah, we'll have Facebook, Instagram. We're going to be on Spotify, Google Play,
Twitter.
iTunes podcast. Basically, we're going to try and be on every platform there is.
Yeah.
Cool. So Jake, I'm actually going to start off with you because NFL, that's you. Like if we categorize what are our areas of expertise? Obviously, Troy is with the
Do
NBA.
you want to go through that really quick?
Yeah, share
You
that.
want to?
Yeah, let's
Okay, then
do that
I'll
real
have
quick.
you
No,
start.
let's
off.
I think
start
we
with
should
Jake.
also say
No.
we're all fairly well-rounded as well, but
Yeah.
Yeah, Troy's really good
But
with
there's
badminton.
but we're all
I
passionate
love
for
that.
something particular.
I'm
Troy's
playing
very
one.
passionate with NBA. Jake is very passionate with NFL, and then Alex and we're just passionate about all of them, I guess.
I would say Alex really
Alex
has,
is UFC, yes,
and
yes.
Alex really has baseball down too. He played a lot
Yeah.
of baseball and went to the Pony League World Series as a child too. But I mean,
I mean, that is a
so
big accomplishment.
he's a great baseball player,
He
yeah.
sucks now, though.
My picture's
Yeah.
on the wall.
Well, my only problem with Alex is not really his love for baseball. It's the team that he loves. See, he's a Lakers fan and he's a Raiders fan, but he's a Yankees fan. Tell me how this works, folks. I mean, it would have been bad enough if he was a Dodgers fan. Like, don't get me wrong, but he's a Yankees fan.
All right.
So it's like there's some conflicting things here. But anyways.
Can I explain myself, or are you just going to take shots at me and not let me
Whoa, there's
explain
always
back?
side to a story. Alex, please explain why.
Yeah. Okay, so Derek Jeter was always my favorite player growing up, no matter what. And my dad, his favorite team was the Angels and the Cubs.
Thank you, Bullet.
And so
dog.
whenever we went to the only games we really went to were Angels versus Yankees, and I liked every other team my dad liked, but I just couldn't get behind the Angels, and my dad hated the Yankees. So we liked all the same teams in every sport, but except for baseball, and I decided I like Derek Jeter, and when we go to these games, I'm a root against my dad's team. So that's kind of how I fell in love with them.
Okay. So yeah, Jake, why don't you start off with your NFL predictions? What is the predictions? Let's just kind of go with it. I mean, who do you see going to the Super Bowl? Who do you think, did well during free agency? I don't know. Talk about whatever you really want to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, so should I just do my AFC and NFC predictions?
Yeah, go for it. Absolutely.
So I think I'll just run through who I believe is going to go to the playoffs from each conference. I think that the Colts end up winning the AFC South, probably with a 10-6 record, 11-5 record, something like that. I think the Patriots win the AFC East. They're just a shoe-in every year. Even without Gronk, they're still going to be great. But I do think they take a step back without Gronk. The AFC West, I've got it's going to be tough. I've got the Chiefs winning, but it could be the Chargers. I think whoever doesn't win that makes a wild card spot. And then, the AFC North, that's going to be a really tough one to call. I think that's the toughest division, The Ravens have always looked very balanced under Harbaugh as far as their offensive and defensive productions. Lamar Jackson on a rookie contract, he looked pretty solid last year. I mean, he's got some accuracy issues in my opinion, but I think they figured out ways to win with him. And the defense for the Ravens is always good, but the Browns made a bunch of huge signings. So if it all comes together, I mean, the Browns should, on paper, be the favorites to win that division, but I don't know that they will. And I think people are still sleeping on the Steelers a little bit. The Steelers still have great players in James Conner and in Juju, and they figured out ways to win with them already, with Le'Veon and AB having games where they've missed. So, anyways, I think that the Steelers actually win that division, and I do think the Browns and Ravens battle it out, with the Browns winning for the second wild card spot. And then my AFC Championship, I'm gonna go with the Chiefs versus the Colts. And I'm probably a little biased here because I am a Colts fan, but I'm gonna go with the Colts going to the Super Bowl from the AFC.
And I don't even think that's you even being biased. I think a lot of analysts have come out and said that they can see the Colts going to the AFC Championship. So I don't think that's you being biased whatsoever. I think that team is very, very solid. And
yeah, I mean, I think with Tyreek Hill not being suspended, with that news coming out, the Chiefs are still going to be a very solid team. Kareem, not having Kareem Hunt hurts, but man, they've gone through their running back system there in Kansas City is probably the best over the last 10 years. I mean, they've lost Jamal Charles, they've lost Spencer Ware, they've had I think now Davis. I mean, they've had so many different players be able to step in and out of that system and be highly productive.
And just to throw in fantasy football thing, Damian Williams is a must pick up. Anyways, continue.
You had to bring that up. Damian Williams is the reason I didn't start him. And because of that, I didn't win my last game of the season, which left me out of the playoffs in my fantasy football league, of which I then proceeded to score the most points the following 2 weeks and would have won the championship. So, sensitive topic on Damian Williams.
We'll talk about that another
Yeah,
topic because
that's
we're
for another
also
time.
big fantasy football players as well.
And as we get closer to the season, we'll give you some more predictions there. But got to study a little bit more on that with strength of schedule and things like that. But for the NFC, this is much tougher conference in my opinion to predict. I've got the Eagles winning their division. I've got the Rams winning their division. The AFC West or the NFC West. I mean, I've got the Saints winning their division, and I've got the Packers winning their division. It was tough between that's a really tough division. The Vikings and the Bears are both really good teams. I just don't believe in Kirk Cousins as the answer. I think that the longer time goes on, the more and more players will lose belief in him, especially with the larger contract he's got. I don't want to completely lose faith. I don't think they're going to see him as the type of guy that's able to get it done, like a Russell Wilson, Andrew Luck kind of, Patrick Mahomes kind of guy. And then from there, my wild card teams are going to also be from that division. I believe that both the Vikings and the Bears make the wild card. It's tough. The Seahawks and the Cowboys are both potential teams. I just think that the NFC, is going to be really, really tough next year. With Carson Wentz being back at full capacity for the entire season, I think that Eagles team is going to be really good. I think the question mark, to be honest, for the Rams is Todd Gurley and the arthritis in the knee.
Of course.
But
and I'm definitely going to dive into
and I think the Cowboys
I'm a Rams fan myself.
Yeah, and I'll finish up just real quick. I'll just say that the Cowboys are in a tough predicament because they got a lot of people they got to pay. They got Dak, who's up for a contract, who's not going to take a discount, he said. Zeke wants a restructured deal. You got to pay Amari Cooper.
Yeah.
They franchise tagged DeMarcus Lawrence, who, of course, every team wants to be able to keep their pass rusher, especially an elite one like him, who's, who's, I believe, 26, 27, something like that. He's going to be elite for the next 4 or 5 seasons, So he's going to hit the free agency market next season, and they aren't going to be able to keep him if they give everyone these deals. So I think the money situation is catching up to the Cowboys. I think they hit early on a lot of great draft picks, but they missed their window to be able to win their Super Bowl. So
Real quick before we move on to Troy, to bring up the Cowboys real quick, do you think the Cowboys, this is like, for them at least, it's a must-win year? Because obviously with Dak signing his contract, and then now you have Cooper that's due for a contract, and then you have Zeke as well. Do you feel like this team, this is a must-win season for them? Because Jason Witten just came back to the Cowboys, but it's probably just for 1 year.
Yeah, I think they're all in, but I don't think they do it. I've got Colts versus... boy, this is tough. I'm going to go Colts versus Eagles.
Okay.
That's your Super Bowl prediction? Okay. Real quick, before we start our thought, what's your NFC Championship prediction?
I'm going to go with the Eagles versus either the Saints or Packers.
Wow. Okay. Okay.
Cool.
I would
Troy,
love to see a Saints-Packers playoff matchup with Breeze versus...
So that we
Rodgers.
keep on track, I'm going to move Troy into the next prediction on NFL.
So I'm not going to really go into divisions. I feel like there's a few that are...
So just give your conference then.
That's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to do conference championships and then obviously Super Bowl because I feel like there's a few conferences out there that can go either way. So for the AFC, it's so... Through this podcast, you are going to learn that I'm not that big a fan of Boston teams. I'm not.
I hate Boston teams too.
So I absolutely do not like the Patriots. I'm just going to be completely honest. I'm just not that big a fan. But that being said, it's hard to count New England out. So that being said, my AFC Championship will be... I think it's going to be the same. I think it's going to be Chiefs and Patriots again. I really do. I could dive really into the Patriots why, but I don't even think that's necessary. Chiefs, I think Mahomes gets better. I mean, the running back situation and wide receiver situation is a little sketchy, but I feel like Mahomes can push them enough. And NFC gets a little tougher. I got Eagles and Rams in the championship game. I got Eagles-Rams championship game in the NFC. And the NFC was so difficult because I still feel like the Saints are very good. I feel like I agree with Jake. I think the Packers are really good. Cowboys are really good. But my whole thing is I honestly feel like the Rams would have beat New England last year if Gurley was 100% and they had Cooper Kupp, because I was actually watching this game with Jake. And there were so many times that New England would just clamp down on LA's offense, and we would be like, wow, if they would have just had that one weapon, like that slot receiver, like that would have just opened up their offense some more. Probably would have gave Gurley a little more room to do more, and then would have probably taken a little bit more pressure off Goff. You know, this is Goff's biggest game of his life, and he needed probably the pressure to be relieved from him a little more. I really feel like if those guys were 100%, then the Rams would have won that game. But that being said, Kupp's coming back. There's still the uncertainty of Gurley, but I'm going to go still with the Rams. My actual prediction is Chiefs-Rams.
Chiefs-Rams?
Chiefs-Rams.
For the Super Bowl next year.
For the Super Bowl. It's not often we see... It's not like the NBA where you can see literally the same teams go to the Super Bowl.
Well, you can see our bias creeping in here. I got Colts in the Super Bowl. You got Rams in the Super Bowl.
Well, I feel like the NFC's super
they're
tough.
fair. You're seeing our bias.
I don't
creeping
think I'm
in.
not... Okay, that's
Okay.
a whole other show. I want to hear Alex's thoughts.
Yeah.
I'm not going to really go into it more, but
Let me bring up something. I'm curious. If we're going through the NFL, and we're going through all the different divisions and conferences, which division do you think is by far the toughest? Because for me, it would be the NFC North. No, I'm sorry. NFC South.
With the Saints,
Panthers, Falcons.
and Buccaneers.
Yeah.
Would you guys agree that's probably the toughest division, or do you see a different division that's even more tough?
Yikes. I feel like the NFC West is going to be
I was going to say this is a really tough year because you've got to go into the if you're facing the NFC West, if that's the division you're getting forced to play this year, you're really
like how many pieces
it's really tough because
you've
got a game plan for a lot of question marks, to be honest, without a ton of film. Like you've got to go into the Cardinals without film on Kyler Murray and Cliff Kingsbury and how that offense is going to run. You've got to go into how Shanahan and Garoppolo are going to be on the 49ers, which you don't have film of yet. So those are two teams that are hard to prepare for, but to be honest, they've got really good pieces on defense, and so they could hold a lot of teams to a few points. And so if you don't game plan well for that offense and they catch you by surprise, they can pull games by you, even though I don't know they're going to be the ones that excel in the division next year. But then you've got the Seahawks, which has got a top 5 coach leading them in the league with Pete Carroll, and a top, one of the best young quarterbacks in the league with Russell Wilson. And by young, I mean 30 and under. And then you got the Rams. So I don't know. I think the whole NFC is tough because then you've got the whole Bears, Vikings, Packers division. It's not easy either. And then Matt Stafford's no slump either for a quarterback on the Lions.
They actually did very well during free agency as well.
Yeah, you sleep on them.
I mean, the AFC West is no joke either.
To be honest, all of football next year is really going to be competitive.
Yeah.
No, it's super interesting next year.
I want to hear Alex's picks here. I'm very...
Who do you see in the AFC conference finals, and who do you see in the NFC conference?
Damn, that's so tough. Probably the Chiefs and...
I know it's
either
tough.
the Steelers or the Patriots, but I'm gonna.
The Steelers?
Yeah,
Really?
yeah. I still think they
I
got it.
think the
They still
Steelers
got
will
something
still
to
do
prove
well.
now that AB's gone. They got something to prove.
Yeah, I think
They're gonna be
Le'Veon's
fine.
gone too. So.
I think they got James.
I
Conner,
think James
he's
Conner
fine.
will step into that
They're
system
fine.
very well.
Yeah.
I really believe they're fine now that I think a lot of their drama's gone too.
Which those two were the main.
I think
pieces
Bullet
for
wants to
drama.
talk, guys. I think it's Bullet's time.
He's just on the couch here, just like, well, my opinion is.
But
What's the American bully?
and the NFC, I've got the Saints and Packers,
Okay.
and I think the final would be the Chiefs versus. The Saints.
Okay.
See,
So you think the Saints actually finally make it to the playoffs?
Boy,
Because the
cue
last
back
2
to-
years for the playoffs for the Saints have been so unfortunate. It's
That
not
Vikings
even funny.
with Stephon Diggs were the
worst. That
yeah.
was the worst.
I don't know, man.
They've
I
been
think
so close.
they're getting all they're suffering the same fate the Colts suffered for a few years. I
Yeah.
feel bad for Drew Brees, man.
Yeah,
But I think the Saints window's over.
You don't even think this year they can make it to the Super Bowl?
I think they could, but for sure, I mean, I'm never going to count out the Saints. I just think that the NFC is extremely stacked this year.
That's true. There's a lot.
With a
teams.
lot of players that have, been impactful that are coming into their prime, and I think that it's just going to be a really interesting season.
Cool. So I'll move on to my predictions for the AFC. I'm just going to follow the trend because I honestly agree with it. Would be the Chiefs. Actually, I think I could see the Chiefs and the Patriots in the AFC. I don't think you can count out the Patriots yet. Every single year that I do, they somehow make their way to the Super Bowl because it's the Patriots. They have the best, probably arguably the best coach to ever coach football.
That's what I was gonna say. As long as Belichick and Brady are there, it's just very difficult to count them out.
I agree.
They're
And
so
I just-
consistent.
And I
Yeah.
just can't because I don't know. I'd have to look into it. But how many AFC conference have they gone to?
Oh my goodness!
In a row.
I
I think it's 8 or 9.
think they've been to so many we just don't even know.
I know. we know,
Exactly.
it's just
Like,
over.
So that's why you have to. I don't know. That's why I'm going to continue that trend and
Yeah.
just say it's going to be the
It's been
Chiefs.
since 2011,
and the Patriots.
so it's like 8. I believe it's 8.
And for the NFC, man, I'm going to have to agree with you guys. It's really difficult.
Yeah.
Saints will be there. I feel like the past 2 years they've gotten screwed over. Like Jake mentioned, one with Stephon Diggs and the other with bad missed call for the pass interference. I know Troy has an opinion on it, which is fine.
So many opinions.
But it was a call that was missed. But Drew Brees would be
Absolutely, I agree with
Drew Brees was the first one to say, regardless, they had an opportunity to win in overtime
Yes.
and they just couldn't do it.
Yeah.
But anyways, so I would definitely put the Saints in the NFC conference finals, and then also I would put. I'm going to put a team that we all haven't talked about, but
the Raiders.
well, they're AFC.
Well, they are AFC.
But
Not bad. I thought we were. I just thought we were talking about
I'm going to put Seahawks. I'm going to say Seahawks and Saints NFC.
Ooh, baby.
Woo! Seahawks is another team where every single year they fight their way and make their way to the playoffs. So I think they're just going to continue that trend moving forward. So those are my predictions.
Okay.
So great news is we've gotten 58 minutes into this podcast, which is incredible. We got a lot of good insight on our opinions on free agency, our top fives, and the NFL predictions. So thank you for tuning in for the Buffoons Sportscast. I'm one of your hosts, like I mentioned, Phil Melangi, Alex Campbell, Troy Alexander, and Jake Hoffman. We appreciate you taking the time to listen to our podcast, and soon to come will be our social media, so through Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and whatnot. So again, thank you for listening to us. We really appreciate it. And until next time, Bullet, take it away.